שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. We begin now with the meditation for one who cannot fast.
As you know, dear God, Yom Kippur is fast approaching, and because of my condition, I am not able to keep the traditional fast. I cannot abstain totally from eating. On this Day of Atonement, this year and every year, it is so central to join the people of Israel in denying ourselves food and drink for one day, so that we focus on correcting our misdeeds, on knowing our mortality, on reaching a life of Torah, mitzvot, and loving kindness. You know, dear God, that it is not my intent to be apart from our people and our tradition. My current state of health makes it unsuitable for me to fast. So, dear God, I turn to you now in sincerity and openness. May my eating be as a fast. May it be dedicated to you, to Teshuvah, to the renewal and restoration of my relationship to you, to others, and to myself.
Amen. We continue now with Kol Nidre on the cello. We continue now with the President's Torah procession. Please join us in singing Or Zaru Ala Tzadik, Light is Sown for the Righteous. We're on page 204, in the middle of the page.
Or Zarua La Tzadik U'Yishrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik U'Yishrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik U'Yishrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik.
Please rise as you are able.
U'Yishrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik 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 U'Yishrei Lev Simcha.
Tonight, we begin the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, Yom Kippur. The essence of this holy day is simple: life is a precious gift, and we, all of us, individually and collectively, have infinite potential. No one knows when they will live and when they will die. We can only control how we live. The essential message of Yom Kippur is that God loves us and wants us to return to our best selves. If we're successful, our prayers and reflections and the power of simply being together as a community will inspire us to be kinder, more thoughtful, and more generous people. It will inspire us to be more connected and more committed Jews. As we look back on a year of profound loss and suffering that continues, we enter this holy day with the conviction that who we are and what we do matters. We lean into each other for strength and inspiration. We hope to catch a glimpse of the truest yearnings of our hearts and to experience the inextinguishable spirit of the Jewish people. My heartfelt prayer is that each of us will take advantage of this precious and holy day as a time of reflecting and turning, a time of aspiring and hoping that the year ahead will be better, that the year ahead will be better than the year that has passed, and that we will be worthy of the gift of life itself. Gemar Chatima Tova. May we be sealed, and may we seal ourselves in the book of life. Page 204 at the bottom. By the authority of the court on high and by the authority of this court below, with divine consent and with the consent of this congregation, we grant permission to pray with those who have transgressed.
Yeshiva shel mala, uyeshiva shel mata, al dat hamakom ve'al dat hakahal, anu matirim lehipalel im havaryanim, b'yeshiva shel mala, Uvishiva shel mata, al dat hamakom ve'al dat hakahal, anu matirim Shevitin, Betelinu mevutalim, Lasharirin, Velakayamin, Nidrana la Nidre, Ve'esarana la Esare, Ushuatana la Shevuot. Ay, 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 Kol Nidre, Vesare, Vacharame, Vekoname, Vechinuye, Vechinuse, Ushuot. Ay, 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 Dindarna. Ay, 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 Udishtabana. Udeacharimna, Vedasarna, Al Nafshatana, Miyom Kippurim zeh ad Yom Kippurim. Ay, 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 ay. Haba aleinu letova, kulhon icharad navehon, kulhon yehon sheran, shevikin, shevitin, vetelinu mevutalim, Lasharirin, Velakayamin, Nidrana la Nidre, Vesarana la Esare, Ushavuata Kippurim zeh ad Yom Kippurim. Ay, 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 ay. Haba aleinu letova. Kulo yicharana behon. Kulhon yehon sheran. Shirikin, shiritin, betelinu mebutalin, lasharirin, velakayamin, nidrana la nidre, ve'esarana la esare, ushivu avtana la shivuot. V'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael, v'lager agar b'tocham, ki lechol ha'am bishaga. V'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael, v'lager hagar b'tocham, ki lechol ha'am bishgaga. V'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael, v'lager hagar b'tocham, ki lechol ha'am bishgaga. Selachna lavona amazeh kegodel chastecha, v'chasher nasata lamazeh mimitzrayim biad heina, v'sham nemar. Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha. Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha. Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha.
In a moment, we'll join together in singing the Shechianu prayer. First, I want you to just fully take in the presidents of our synagogue, our past presidents, who are standing before us from the earliest to the most recent, and to think about the gifts that they have given to our synagogue over the decades. And now I want you to think in your own life about what it took for you to be alive and sustained and here with us in this moment, in this year. And to think also about your parents and your grandparents and all the things that had to have happened in their lives for you to be sustained and enabled to reach this moment. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. remain standing as the Torah scrolls are returned to the ark and as the past presidents return to their seats. Please be seated. Yom Kippur is known as Shabbat Shabbaton, the Shabbat of Shabbos, and I don't know if that was a good translation or not, but the Sabbath of Sabbaths. But tonight also actually happens to be Shabbat since it's Friday night. And so we continue with some special prayers for Shabbat, starting on page 206.
Mizmor, mizmor, shir, shir
Liyom HaShabbat, Mizmor, mizmor, shir, shir Liyom HaShabbat. We continue at the arrow, or in the transliteration, Sadi Katamar.
Sadi
Katamar Yifrach Keres Balvanon Yizkeh Shetunim Bebeit Adonai Bechatzrot Eloheinu Yafrichu Oyenu von Beseva Deshenim Rananim Iyu Lehagid Ki Ashar Adonai We now turn to the Mourner's Kaddish on page 247. Mourners and those observing a yard site, please rise as you are able for the Mourner's Kaddish, 247. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divera kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehe shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam ulamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudasha brichu. Le'ela le'ela mikol berchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. Please be seated. We now call upon our fearless leader, our president, Aaron Delaney, to give the president's remarks.
Thank you, Rabbi Julie. Welcome, everyone. Lashana Tova. So, I've been thinking about this speech over the last week, and it occurred to me that I had actually said most of what I wanted to say last week during my Rosh Hashanah speech, where I reported that Shomrei is doing great, that our membership is growing, our new membership applications are up, and our sustaining share contributions are up. And that's mostly because of all of you in the room here tonight. So I'm not sure this high holiday season really needs another speech from the president, or that you want one. But since it's Yom Kippur, let's think of this as a form of collective atonement. So I checked with Rabbi Julie and said, what do you think I should talk about? And what she said is you should offer some sort of short personal prayer in the spirit of the season. And so I decided I would do that tonight by offering two prayers. Probably neither as short or as personal as she was hoping. But here goes. And I'm going to add one, which is that next year I will be on time for the President's Processional. But let me start first with a more personal prayer of what I'm hoping for myself as a new president. And I'm going to base it on a discussion we had at the morning Torah study a few weeks ago. And the passage we focused on that morning was from Deuteronomy, Ki Tavo, which starts with a prayer of gratitude that the Israelites must offer when they first enter the land. And along with this prayer, they must offer the bikurim, or first fruits, that they have harvested once they've entered the land, even though they did not do the work for those first fruits. And so in a very literal sense, what this passage is doing is giving instructions to the ancient Israelites. But in a larger sense, I think what this passage reminds me of is that we are all beneficiaries of the work of those that have come before us. And we all, in some sense, are harvesting the bounty of the land that we have not sown and that we have not cultivated. But it's really the next passage in Ki Tavo that I find really striking, personally. As in this text, it challenges the next generation of Israelites and every generation that follows to bring a tithe or a contribution every 3 years. But this is not just any contribution. It is a very specific contribution, and when you make it, you must declare the following. I have cleared out the consecrated portion from my house, and I have given it to the Levite, to the stranger, to the orphan, and to the widow, just as you have commanded me. And why I find this passage personally moving is that after we give thanks for everything that we have inherited and everything that we didn't work for, every 3 years we are commanded to declare to our community, now I have done my part. Not just for my community, but for the stranger, and for those who don't enjoy the privileges and the resources that we do, or that I do. And this passage is also known as a vidui, or a confession, just like the ones we offer throughout the High Holy Days. But unlike those other confessions, where we are commanded to stand in front of God and recount our personal and collective failures. Instead, with this vidui, we stand in front of God and our community and we confess our successes. We say that we have given back to our community and that we have done it in the right way. Not that we are perfect and not that necessarily we've done everything that we can do, but that we stand there with the self-confidence to be held accountable because we have done what we can. So that's my first prayer tonight, that at the end of the next 3 years, when I'm standing up here again to make my confession at the end of my term as president, and yes, Charlie, it will only be one term, that I will not only be confessing my sins and my failings, of which I'm sure there'll be many, and of which I know my children will remind me constantly, but I will be able to confess that I have done my part, that I have done my best, that I've been able to listen to you, to make each of you feel welcome, and to help you all feel like Shomrei is home. And so now for my next prayer, my second prayer, which is more collective. For this, I want to actually return to the poem that I mentioned last week on Rosh Hashanah, where I focused on one particular line from that poem, that things fall apart and the center cannot hold. But the next few lines of this poem talk about the results of things falling apart. It talks about rising anarchy and violence and the loss of innocence. And then, in the midst of this turmoil and this dismal state of affairs, the poet seems to offer at least a partial diagnosis for what is going wrong. And the poet says that the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. And it's that last line that really stuck with me, that the worst are filled with passionate intensity. Because I think that's what I see right now. I see people becoming increasingly invested in old ideas and old hatreds that we have all tried to move past, and that I know that many of you in this room have fought to move past. And I see it in my practice as a civil rights lawyer, where we're increasingly fighting for basic human rights and individual dignity that we thought we had already won. But we are matched step by others who are committed to a different kind of future and a different set of values. And so that is my second prayer tonight. I pray that over the next few years, when we are presented with opportunities as a community to make our own contributions, that we are able to meet this moment in the way that it requires, with the same or even greater conviction and passionate intensity as those who seek to do harm to the world. And that we do so based on our values and the future that we want to see and build together. So those are my prayers tonight. But in offering them, I don't want you to think that I've taken leave of my senses or lost perspective, because I'm still realistic. I know that we are a growing community and a vibrant community, but we are still relatively small in the grand scheme of things. And I know that there's only so much that we can do together, or that I can do as your president. But I really do believe in this community, and I believe in our rabbi, and I believe in the board of trustees, and I think that together we can do great things. So, again, I thank you for listening. L'shana tova, and may you have an easy and meaningful fast.
Thank you, Aaron, for those beautiful words. You know, the last time I talked to Aaron, he said he wasn't going to offer any kind of personal prayer. So I'm really glad that he did. It's time now for the evening service. Please rise for the Baruch on page 207 and join in the magnificent special melody for the high holidays. Talia will start with the nigun, and then we'll all join together in the words of Baruch Hu.
Nai, 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 nai,
Nai, nai, nai. Nai, 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 nai. Nai, 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 nai. Please be seated.
Umavdil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai tziva'ot shemo, Elchai v'kayam, Tamidim loch aleinu, leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Hamari v'rabim. Avat olam beit Yisrael.
Avat olam beit Yisrael, Amcha avta, Torah u'mitzvot, chokim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta, al ken Adonai Eloheinu, b'shochveinu v'kumeinu, nasiach b'chokecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'lemitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed, ki hem chayenu ve'orech yamenu, ve'orech yameinu, uvahem nege yomam balayla, yomam balayla. Before we continue with the blessing before the Shema, I just want to point out something I'm going to talk about later. We just sang this prayer, Ahavat Olam. You have loved your people, the house of Israel, with infinite love, says this prayer that introduces the Shema. And then after the Shema comes the V'ahavta. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all that is yours.
Ki hem chayenu, ve'orech yameinu, ubahem nege yomam v'layla, ve'ahavatecha al tasir mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai
ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך.
Adonai Elohechem emet.
In a moment, we'll pick up in the middle of page 210 at the arrow to sing the Micha Mocha prayer of redemption that our ancestors sang after they crossed the Red Sea.
Umalchuto beratzon kiblu aleihem Moshe uMiriam uBnei Yisrael lechanu shira b'simcha rabba ve'amru chula michamocha ba'elim Adonai michamocha nedar kodesh norah tehilot oseh lev malchutecha ra'u banecha bukei hayam lifnei Moshe Zeili anu be'amru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed V'ne'emar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov ugalo mi'ad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai gal Yisrael.
In a moment, we're going to continue with the Hashkivenu prayer for peace. Of course, at this time, our hearts and our minds are with our brothers and sisters in Israel. I was speaking to a colleague and a friend who lives on Kibbutz Hanaton in the north, and I was asking her how she is, and she told me how she was in terms of whether or not she heard sirens and whether or not she heard the blast of bombs nearby. So that is kind of the reality that they're dealing with in Israel. But I'm also thinking about our brothers and sisters in Ukraine and also all Ukrainians. My friend Rachel begged me to also include Ukraine in my prayers for peace because her brother Zev, who is Haredi, went to Ukraine, to Uman, to Rabbi Nachman of Breslov's grave, along with 20,000 other Hasidim for Rosh Hashanah, despite the fact that there's an active war there. And so I'm also keeping all of the people of Ukraine fresh in my mind as we read together in the English responsively on page 211 on the left-hand side. Allow us, Adonai, our God, to sleep peacefully and to waken again to life, our sovereign.
Spread over us your canopy of peace, restore us with your good counsel, and save us for the sake of your name.
Shield us, remove from us enemies and pestilence, sword, starvation and sorrow, and remove the evil forces that surround us.
Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you, God, watch over and deliver us. And you are the sovereign, merciful, and compassionate.
Ensure our going and coming for life and peace now and forever.
May you spread over us your canopy of peace.
Baruch atah Adonai, who spreads the canopy of peace over us and over all the people Israel and over Jerusalem.
Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, Baruch atah Adonai, hapore sukat shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
We now rise first for Vishamru for Shabbat and then for the special prayer for Yom Kippur. We're on page 212. Please rise as you are able. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beinu bein bnei Yisrael oti leolam, oti leolam, oti leolam. Veshamru bnei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, Asa Adonai, et ha-shamayim v'et ha'aretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. V'yom hashvi Shabbat v'yinafash, Shabbat v'yinafash, Shabbat v'yinafash. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Now please join me in the English in the middle of the page. For on this day atonement shall be made for you to purify you from all your transgressions. In the presence of Adonai you shall be pure.
Ki vayom hazeh yechaper aleichem letaner etchem mikol chatoteichem lifnei Adonai titaru.
In a moment after the Chatzi Kaddish, we'll continue with the Amidah silently. This is the first of many opportunities for personal prayer and to think about just what it means to us to want to be written into the book of life.
Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach irutei ve'amlich malchutei v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael v'agalau izman kariv imru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam le'olmei almaya yibarach yibarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shmei dekudasha b'rihu le'ela Kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata lenechemata damiran be'alma v'yimeru. Amen.
Yaseh Shalom Vimroa. Yaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael ve'imru Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael. Because it is Shabbat, we now turn to page 222. Please rise as you are able. Vayechulu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzevam vayechal Elohim bayom hashvi'i melachto asher asa vayishbot bayom hashvi'i mikol melachto asher asa vayivarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i vayikadesh oto ki bo Shabbat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim la'asot. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora El Elyon Konei Shamayim va'aretz Magen Avot bidbaro Mechaye metim b'mamaro HaMelech HaKadosh she'en kamohu HaMeniach li'amo b'yom Shabbat kodsho Ki bam ratza laniach lahem Ki bam ratza laniach lahem Lefanav navod b'yirah v'fachad V'nodeh lishmo b'chol yom tamid Me'on habrachot El ha'odot Adon HaShalom Mekadesh HaShabbat U'varech Shevi U'meniach b'kdusha Li'amikdu shnei oneg Zecher Lema'aseh Bereshit Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu Retzei V'imnuchatenu Ka'ashenu b'mitzvotecha V'tein chelkeinu b'toiratecha Sabbeinu mitovecha V'samchenu b'shuatecha V'ta'er libeinu le'obdecha be'emet V'hanchilenu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava uvratzon Shabbat kodshecha v'yanuchu v'yishael Mekadesh shemecha Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Please be seated. We turn to the special prayer for Slichot on page 223.
If on Rosh Hashanah we centered God's majesty, splendor, and sovereignty in our communication with the divine, then over Yom Kippur we emphasize God's fundamental orientation toward mercy and compassion. Or put more simply, we focus on God's love, God's unknowable, ineffable, utterly boundless love for God's own creatures. I mentioned on Rosh Hashanah that the 13 attributes, which we will read shortly, the first of many, many times over the next 24 or so hours that we'll say them, come from chapter 34 of Exodus, when Moses recites them in the middle of a negotiation with God. Our Slichot service, the time when we most clearly emphasize how close we wish to be to God, how we are desperate for forgiveness and love, culminates in these 13 attributes. It was so powerful in chapter 34 that Moses independently knows to appeal to God's gentler side. But there's a midrash that suggests another understanding. According to a tale in Tractate Rosh Hashanah in the Talmud, Moses asked God how the Israelites would manage to ask for mercy once Moses was no longer around to ask on their behalf. God replied with leading by example. According to the Midrash, God's self put on a talit, the same ones we wear in shul. God put on a talit, and then God said God's own 13 attributes, instructing Moses, just do as I do. God explained that the invocation of these 13 traits is like a formula, and it will bring for us protection, love, and forgiveness for the Jewish people. As we approach this recitation of God's attributes, we stand on the shoulders of generations of our ancestors, who for millennia have done the very same thing we are about to do, in desperate pursuit of a closer relationship with divine mercy, compassion, and forgiveness. We continue with Slichot on page 223.
Nachatenu mi boker.
Ay, 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 ay,
Ve'aher nachatenu ad arev.
ay, 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 ay.
Ay, 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 ay. We continue responsively in the English on the left-hand side of the page. May our supplications rise up at evening, our pleas arrive with the dawn, our songs transform the dusk.
May
Our voices arise up at evening, our righteous acts arrive with the dawn, our redemption transform the dusk.
May our suffering rise up at evening, our forgiveness arrive with the dawn, our purity transform the dusk.
May our prayers rise up at evening, coming to you with the dawn, transforming us at dusk.
And we join together in the last stanza in the Hebrew or the transliteration.
Ya'aleh
En katenu ne'erev, ve'avo elecha mi boker,
Ay, 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 ay,
ve'yira'eh eleinu ad arev.
ay, 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 ay.
We turn now to page 225. Tonight we'll go through 3 cycles of Slichot prayers. The first cycle is on the theme of pleas of mercy, 225.
הנשמה לך והגוף הולך חוסה על המלך הנשמה לך הנשמה לך והגוף שלך אדוני עשה למען שמך.
Page 226, towards the bottom of the page, Adonai, Adonai.
Adonai,
Adonai, El Rachum Bechanun, Erech Chapayim, Verav Chesed Ve'emet, Notzer Chesed La'alafim, Nosei Avon Va'fesha V'chata V'nakeh.
וסלחת לעווננו ולחטאתנו נחלתנו.
סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו, מחל לנו מלכנו כי פשענו, כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח ורב חסד לכל קוראיך. We turn to page 227 and we continue with the second cycle of Slichot prayers on the theme of human vulnerability with this beautiful piyut, this beautiful prayer poem that talks about us being like clay in the hand of the potter.
הנה כחומר ביד היוצר, ברצותו מרחיב וברצותו מקצר. כן אנחנו בידך, מחייב וממוטט לברית הבית, ואל תפן ליצר. כי הנה כגרזן בידך רש, ברצותו דיבר לעבור, וברצותו פירש. כן אנחנו בידך, תומך אני ברש לברית הבית, ואל תפן ליצר.
Join me in the English, starting with the fourth paragraph. As the helm in the hand of the sailor who holds the course or abandons it at will, so we are in your hand, good and forgiving God. Recall your covenant. Do not heed the accuser.
לברית הבית, ואל תפן ליצר.
As glass in the hand of the glazer who shapes or melts it at will, so are we in your hand, pardoner of sin and transgression. Recall your covenant. Do not heed the accuser.
לברית הבית, ואל תפן ליצר.
As cloth in the hand of the draper who drapes or twists it at will, so are we in your hand, righteous God. Recall your covenant. Do not heed the accuser.
לברית הבית, ואל תפן ליצר. כי הנה ככסף ביד הצורף, ברצותו משגשג, וברצותו מצרף. כן אנחנו בידך, ממשיל מזור טרף, לברית הבית, ואל תפן ליצר.
Turn now to page 229, joining in the words Adonai, Adonai in the bold towards the middle of the page.
Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Bechanun, Erech Apayim, Verav Chesed Ve'emet, Noser Chesed La'alafim, Nosei Avon V'Fesha, V'Chata V'Nakeh. וסלחת לעווננו, לחטאתנו נחלתנו. סלח לנו אבינו, כי חטאנו, מחל לנו מלכנו, כי פשענו, כי אתה אדוני, טוב וסלח, ורב חסד לכל קוראיך.
We turn now to the third cycle of Slichot on the theme of yearning for God, page 231. At the bottom of the page, we read together in the English. Adonai, where shall I find you? High and hidden is your place. And where shall I not find you? The world is full of your glory. I sought your closeness. I called to you with all my heart. And going out to meet you, I found you coming toward me. Kevod chamale olam, kevod chamale olam, yana emtzacha, kevod chamale olam. I just want to say a quick word of I'm sorry. Sometimes when people come up to lead certain prayers, I'm like in my own zone and I forget that they're about to read it. So it was nice to lead that together with you, Lynn. And we're going to continue now on page 232 in the bold Adonai, Adonai.
Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Bechanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed Be'emet, Noser Chesed La'alachim, Nosei Avon Ba'fesha, V'chata L'nakeh, V'salachta L'avoninu, L'chatatenu Nechaltanu. Selach lanu aminu, ki chatanu, mechal lanu malkeinu, ki pashanu, ki ata Adonai, tov v'salach, v'rav chesed lechol porecha.
Please rise as you are able as the ark is opened. We're on page 233. Shema Koalenu, hear our voice.
Shema Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem
seated. Ki anu amecha, for we are your people, is elegant in its simplicity. The entire poem, or piyut, consists of 12 pairings of types of relationships. But counterintuitively, the poem is actually about how very difficult it is to understand the nature of our relationship with the divine partner. So difficult that we have these 12 different, let's call them theses, or different possibilities, different options of what relationship we might have that may speak to us more or less at different times. Consider how very different each type of relationship is in the poem. Are we God's slaves, property, spousal partner, subjects, or children? All very different. How very troubling it is to consider that we are all of us each of these, though we might also consider it empowering to know that whatever dynamic we find ourselves in at present, whichever of those relationships we're in right now, it may be temporary. The spirit of the poem suggests that we can only guess at how God sees us. We can enumerate possibilities, but we cannot state answers. I want to invite everyone to build on this poem and add in your own possibilities. What relationship paradigm that's missing from the text inspires you? What will move you in the next 24 hours, or the next month, or the next year? We say Ki anu amecha many times over Yom Kippur. You'll have lots of opportunities, and perhaps you'll try a different edition at each rendition of the prayer. Here is a short list of some additions that previous people have come up with when I've asked them. We are your agents, and you are our inspiration. We are your players, and you are our coach. We are fearful, and you are our protector. We are your choir, and you are our conductor. We are your students, and you are our teacher. We are your garden, and you are our caretaker. We are your image, and you are our God. We are your program, and you are our operating system. That one's from my dad. We are your readers, and you are our author. I will give people just a moment to silently ponder what pairing you wish to add, what pairing you need God to be in your partnership in the coming year. As we enter Vidui, we take a full, honest look at who we are at our cores, who we are in our entirety. We try to really know who we are, and in Ki anu amecha we affirm that we are God's people. But there is a question that hangs as we pause for a minute to ask God, who are you? Ki anu amecha is on page 234.
Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu, Selach lanu, Mechal lanu, Kaper lanu, Ki anu amecha v'yata Eloheinu, anu vanecha v'yata Avinu, anu avadecha v'yata Adonenu, anu kehalecha v'yata chelkeinu, anu nachalecha v'yata goralenu, anu tzonecha v'yata ro'enu, anu charnecha v'yata nozreinu, anu feulatecha
for the Ashamnu confession on page 235 as we sing the words together and as we strike our hearts with each word. Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Tibarnu Dofi. Ay, 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 Hevinu, Vehirshanu, Zadnu, Chamasnu, Tafalnu Sheker. Ay, 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 Yasnura, Kizavnu, Latsnu, Maradnu, Niatsnu, Tsararnu, Avinu, Pashanu, Tsararnu, Kishinu, Oref. Ay, 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 Rashanu, Shechatnu, Te'amnu, Tainu, Te'tanu. Ay, 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 ay. We turn now to page 237 for the Al Chet confessional. We'll begin each section by chanting the first 4 verses in Hebrew, and then we'll join together responsively in the English, coming back together for the chorus.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'ones uratzon, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'imutz halev. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'bli dat, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'vitui sfatayim.
We have sinned against you unwillingly and willingly.
And we have sinned against you through hardening our hearts.
We have sinned against you thoughtlessly.
We have sinned against you in idle chatter,
We have sinned against you through sexual immorality.
and
We have sinned against you openly and in private.
We have sinned against you knowingly and deceitfully.
And we have sinned against you by the way we talk.
We have sinned against you by defrauding others.
And we have sinned against you in our innermost thoughts.
We have sinned against you through forbidden trysts.
And we have sinned against you through empty confessions.
We have sinned against you by scorning parents and teachers.
And we have sinned against you purposely and by mistake.
We have sinned against you by resorting to violence.
And we have sinned against you by public desecration of your name.
We have sinned against you through foul speech.
And we have sinned against you through foolish talk.
We have sinned against you through pursuing the impulse to evil.
And we have sinned against you wittingly and unwittingly.
For all these sins, forgiving God, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement.
Ve'alam Eloah Selichot Selach lanu Mechalanu Kaperanu.
We have sinned against you through denial and deceit.
And we have sinned against you by taking bribes.
We have sinned against you by clever cynicism.
And we have sinned against you by speaking ill of others.
We have sinned against you by the way we do business.
And we
We
have
have
sinned
sinned against you in our eating and drinking.
We have sinned against you by greed and oppressive interest.
And we have sinned against you through arrogance.
We have sinned against you in everyday conversation.
And we have sinned against you through conspiratorial glances.
We have sinned against you through condescension.
And we have sinned against you through stubbornness.
Ve'al kulam Elohai selichot Selah
against you by throwing off all restraint.
And we have sinned against you by rashly judging others.
We have sinned against you by plotting against others.
And we have sinned against you through selfishness.
We have sinned against you through superficiality.
And we have sinned against you through stubbornness.
We have sinned against you by rushing to do evil.
And we have sinned against you through gossip.
We have sinned against you through empty promises.
And we have sinned against you through baseless
We
hatred.
have sinned against you by betraying trust.
And we have sinned against you by succumbing to confusion.
Ve'al
Kulam Eloah Tzadichot Selanu Mechanu Kapelanu. Remain standing for Kaddish Shalem on page 245 at the bottom.
Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabba.
Amen.
Ve'alma dirach yirtei ve'yamlich malchutei.
V'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayedechol v'Yisrael b'gala u'bizman kariv ve'emeru.
Ve'yimeru.
Amen. Yehesh me'Rabba me'varach le'olam le'om le'almaya.
Yitbarach ve'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam ve'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekut shabrichu
Leila leila mikol birchata v'shirata tushbe'ata v'nechemata damira.
ve'imeru.
Amen.
Titkabal tzilot ponu v'aushon dechol Yisrael kodam avuhon divishmaya ve'imru.
Amen.
Yeshelam
Rabba Nishemaya
ve'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'Roma, u'yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel.
Amen. Please be seated. I want to dedicate my words of Torah tonight to my mother, Alice Roth, who is joining us by live stream. And I want to thank you, Mom, for loving me all the days of my life, even before I was born. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year in love, in seasons of love? That's how you measure a year. I once heard the Dalai Lama, the famous leader of Tibetan Buddhism, speak when I was the rabbi at Princeton University. What I remember most is that he giggled a lot. In fact, he had a joyful giggle unlike any I have ever heard. And that he said very simply and clearly that Buddhism is about compassion. I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, what one single thing could I say Judaism was about? I couldn't even agree with myself on one word. So you can imagine how likely it would be that if you put 100 rabbis in the same room and you asked them this question, what is Judaism is about, that they would be able to come up with the same one word. It never even occurred to me to say that Judaism is about love. Rabbi Shai Held's new book, Judaism is About Love, opens with these words: Judaism is not what you think. Judaism is about love. The Jewish tradition tells a story of a God of love who creates us in love and enjoins us in turn to live lives of love. We are commanded to love God, the neighbor, the stranger, and all of humanity. And we are told that the highest achievement of which we are capable is to live with compassion. This is considered nothing less than walking in God's ways. Now, if this seems new or surprising to you, as it did to me, this is likely because of centuries of Christian anti-Judaism that have convinced you in thinking that Christianity is about love and Judaism is about law. But that's a false dichotomy. As Rabbi Held passionately argues, Judaism is a religion of love and law, of action and emotion. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year in love, in seasons of love? That's how you measure a year. I last heard this chorus, which I'm sure you recognized from the musical Rent, at a funeral almost 10 years ago. My friend Rabbi Vicki Tucker died of breast cancer when she was just 45 years old. I originally met Vicki at the Princeton Board of Rabbis meetings, but we became friends at the gym, doing planks side by side after our spin class. She was the rabbi of a small Reform congregation, and she left behind her beloved husband, Rob, who was her college sweetheart, and her 3 little kids, now grown, who all called her Mama Bear. When her aggressive form of cancer returned, Vicki knew her time was limited, and perhaps because she was a rabbi, she planned out every detail of her funeral in intentional detail, including singing the chorus from Rent. It was important to Vicki that we not see her death as a tragedy, even though she died so young. She wanted her funeral to focus instead on the fullness of her life, ultimately measuring her life not in time or in achievement, but in love. Now, the Torah doesn't command us to love our family. Perhaps because in healthy families, I hope, love comes naturally, certainly more easily than loving the neighbor or loving the stranger or loving God for that matter. But the hope is that the love we experience in our families, whether the families of birth or of choice, that will teach us the fundamentals of love of others. In our busy modern lives, with the demands of work and school and other commitments, and the distractions of technology, combined in some cases with family members living at very long distances, we don't always make enough time or the right kind of time for the people we love. And that doesn't even take into account the strained relationships where difficult personalities or disagreements or past hurts make it really hard to feel and to express love. For me, Yom Kippur is a reminder to take an accounting of how I'm prioritizing and connecting with those I love most, and to course correct if needed. As Rabbi Alan Lew writes, Yom Kippur is meant to be a dress rehearsal for our death. That's why we wear a white kittel, a shroud-like garment on this day, why we refrain from life-affirming activities like eating and drinking and procreating. We are meant to be rehearsing the day of our death to remind us that our time on earth is limited. And at the end of the day, our gravestones are not engraved with our job titles or achievements, but rather with the relationships that matter most to us. Yom Kippur is meant to force us to ask the question, if we knew we only had one more year to live, how would that impact our relationships with our parents, our partners, our siblings, our children, our loved ones. 525,600 minutes. You're not going to sing with me? How do you measure a year in love, in seasons of love? That's how you measure a year. According to Rabbi Shai Held, the heart of a Jewish theology of love is the idea that none of us ever did anything, and none of us ever could do anything to earn the gifts of life and consciousness. Our very lives are a sacred gift given to us by God as an act of love, of course, with the help of our parents. And in return, we are asked to reciprocate that love by caring for our neighbors and for those who are most vulnerable around us. Every time we recite the Shema and the V'ahavta prayer in the morning and the evening, we are affirming that God loves us with an unending love, ahava rabba avtanu, an unceasing love, ahavat olam. And in response, we will try to love God back, b'chol levavcha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol me'odecha, with all our hearts, with all our souls, and with all our might. Rabbi Held teaches God's love is a gift, but it's also an invitation. We are created with love, for love. Here at Shomrei, one of the ways we express love as a community is through the Mensch Squad. Folklore has it that Toby Stein, Zichrona Livracha, may her memory be a blessing, coined this name. Mensch, of course, is a Yiddish word meaning person, specifically a good person, a kind person, a person who inspires you. And a squad is a small organized group of people trained to work as a unit. With more than 65 people on its list, the Mensch Squad is called into action to perform acts of kindness for Shomrei, members in need. The Mensch Squad is dispatched and coordinated by email, and they cook meals when a baby is born or when a family is having a stressful time. They walk with people who are recovering from knee surgery or hip surgery, and they make phone calls to check on people who are living alone. The Mensch Squad offers rides to appointments or to synagogue, and they help donated items find a home. As I understand it, the Mensch Squad was founded around 20 years ago by Toby Stein after Judy Wildman brought her some food at a time when she was in need. Toby thought other people would benefit from these acts of kindness too, and wanted it to happen on a more regular basis. Some of the most powerful stories of how the Mensch Squad has helped people in this community can't be told publicly, because some of the Mensch Squad's most sacred work is done anonymously. But one person told me that the Mensch Squad made all the difference to me, and perhaps the most challenging time of my life. Tonight I want to ask you not only to consider joining the Mensch Squad or volunteering to help if you're already on the list, but you don't answer the calls so often. And I also want to ask each of us to be vulnerable. And when we need something, to reach out to the community for help. That's how we create a caring community and fulfill the commandment in Leviticus, V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, to love your neighbor as yourself. How fitting that the head of the Mensch Squad, Dale Russakoff, will read that verse from the Torah tomorrow at our Yom Kippur afternoon services. So to join the Mensch Squad or to make a request, all you have to do is email Mensch Squad, one word, at shomrei.org. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year in love, in seasons of love? That's how you measure a year. I live just a few blocks away from the Human Needs Food Pantry, which is the organization that will be distributing all of the cereal boxes we are collecting as part of our campaign, Project Isaiah Yom Kippur Drive. This week I went to meet with the executive director, Mike Bruno, a police officer who retired on a Monday and then on Tuesday started working at the pantry to continue his service for the community. Every Tuesday and Thursday, and maybe you've seen it with your own eyes, the Human Needs Food Pantry distributes groceries to 240 walk-ins. That's roughly the number of people sitting here in this room right now, coming every week to receive groceries to cook at home, to feed themselves and their families. Mike said that most of the people he serves live right here in Montclair and Bloomfield. They are literally our neighbors. Mike told me about a brick mason who injured his back and couldn't work anymore. He was crying, ashamed that he could no longer provide for his family. Mike asked him, "How hard was it for you to walk in the door this morning?" "Brutal," said the mason. And Mike responded, "Then you are working hard to support your family by coming here to take these groceries home." Increasingly, the food pantry serves migrants. One of the volunteers, Maura, told me about a 3-year-old boy who traveled from Honduras with his family to Montclair. He was suffering with trauma and not speaking. While he was shopping in the upstairs clothing store with his family, he put on a pair of sneakers, you know, those ones that light up. And as he figured out just how to make those sneakers light up, he laughed for the first time in weeks. He was puzzled, Maura said, about why everyone else was crying. V'ahavtem et hager. We are commanded in the book of Deuteronomy to love the stranger. We are told in the Torah to cut away the thickening on our heart that makes us callous to the needs of others. For God, the great and mighty and awesome God, God befriends the stranger, providing food and clothing. You too must befriend the stranger. You too must love the stranger. Our Torah says, Ki gerim heyitem be'eretz Mitzrayim, because you were also strangers in the land of Egypt. When I asked Shirley Grill why she's gotten so involved with our adopted Afghani refugee family, she says she's paying forward the life of an immigrant. She remembers growing up with Holocaust survivor parents who didn't know enough English to write school notes for her teachers. That's why she handles all of the school correspondence and meetings for the 2 girls at Buzz Aldrin, Asma and Sadia, and Usman at Edgemont. It takes a village to help the Ibrahimi family, with Andy Silver troubleshooting and managing the finances, and other volunteers driving carpool to soccer matches and helping to source and move donated furniture into a new apartment. It's an incredible story, how these 2 brothers, Sadiq and Masi, came over alone, fleeing Afghanistan immediately after the American evacuation. And then how members of our congregation helped them sponsor their parents and 4 of their siblings to join them this past winter. But what moves me most is the love and the connection that's been formed, one where members of the Afghani family make shiva calls, and where our volunteers host birthday parties. Because Sadiq and Masi came alone before their parents, Shomrei's refugee committee became their family. Hours after landing in a completely foreign country, the father and the mother, dressed in traditional Afghani clothing, stared in disbelief and joy as volunteers hauled couches and other donated items up to their 2nd floor apartment. On the car ride home, one of our Shomrei teenagers wondered if the parents, newly arrived in America, had ever met Jews before. He talked about how in the moment when you help someone, none of the things that people fight about matter. And his father agreed, thinking, Jewish, Muslim, irrelevant. Here was a family in need, and we were available to help. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? In love, in seasons of love. That's how you measure a year. This morning I emailed my friend, Rabbi Shai Held, to thank him for putting this Torah of love into the world. He teaches that the Jewish people are called upon not to earn God's love, but to live up to it. This Yom Kippur, I want us to remember that Judaism is about love. In its conclusion, Rabbi Shai Held writes, Judaism is about building families that are schools of love and teaching our children to care. It's about wishing others well and seeing them with loving eyes. It's about seeing and struggling for the dignity of every single human being we encounter. It's about welcoming the stranger with empathy from our suffering. It's about being present with those who are impoverished, ill, or grieving. Judaism is about showing kindness and compassion, even and especially in life's hardest moments and darkest places. It's about creating moments of redemption in the midst of an excruciatingly unredeemed world. My heartfelt wish for all of us is that 5,785 will be a year filled with love, a year where we know we are loved intrinsically by virtue of being created in the image of God, a year where we will learn and teach love in our innermost circles, and a year where our love for every human being will extend to members of this holy community and to our neighbors in Montclair and beyond. For that's how we measure a year, in love, in seasons of love. Gamar Chatima Tova. Please rise as you are able. We continue now on page 246, Aleinu L'Shabeach.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'atei gedula l'yoser b'reshit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'goraynu k'chol ha'amona, v'anachnu korim v'mishachalim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamalachim hakadosh baruch hu.
Kakatuv b'toratecha, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed.
V'nemar b'haya Adonai melech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Please be seated. We continue now with the mourners Kaddish. Mourners and those observing a yard site, please remain standing for the mourners Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divera kirutei ve'amlich machutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei zechol Beit Yisrael, b'agala u'v'zman kari v'muramin, yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'me'al maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yinaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu Le'ela, le'ela, mikol, berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru amen. Please be seated. We now invite Aaron Delaney to share some announcements.
So come back again tomorrow. I remember this time, Jerry. Come back tomorrow for services. Rabbi Justice is giving the sermon tomorrow. And then starting on Sunday, we kick off Sukkot with the building of the sukkah outside. Charlie, are you heading that up again this year? So see Charlie if you want to know how to help out. And then the Sukkot starts off in earnest middle of next week. We have Pizza in the Hut on October 16th. And then, where's Josh? What's going on the 17th?
Scott in the sukkah for gentlemen over 21.
And then, yeah, he rejected my idea of bourbon on the Bema, but so we're going with next year. And then on the 18th, we're doing Sukkot Your Way. So I know that we've been reaching out to some people, and if you have a sukkah and you have a few extra spots, we'd love if you could host. And if you're interested in having Shabbat in a sukkah, please reach out to the office, and we'll try to pair you up. And then I'm looking for one more that Pam asked me to remind people of. Here it is. It's the October 27th. It's the singer concert, which is from Bartok to the Beatles. So please take a look out for that. There'll be more information in the flyer on events. So that's it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I just also want to mention that Shomrei has 2 sukkahs that are very easy to build. They're like sukkah kits that are available. If you don't have a sukkah but you want to build one this year, just reach out again to the office. I'm going to invite Jacob and Talia to join me here, and for everyone to look in the back of your Siddur for the words to Achad Sha'alti, the special psalm we read at this season, and to say really Yasher Koach to Talia for leading us so beautifully in Kol Nidre and the whole evening service, to Al and Stepansky for playing on the cello so beautifully, his rendition of Kol Nidre, and to Jacob Lipkin for being with us here all of the holiday season and all year long as our rabbinic intern.
Achad Sha'alti Me'adonai Ota Avakesh Shefti Bebet Adonai Kol Yamei Chayai. Only one thing I ask of thee, God. Only one thing that I see, to dwell with thee in your light, God, all the days of my life. Achad Sha'alti Me'adonai Ota Avakesh Shema Tova, everyone.
That is so cool. Sorry.
No, I'm making it up. It's annually cause, you know, you may write.
I don't know. It's a double-edged sword because I always like worry about drinking too much and like having to use bathroom in the middle of the soccer league. So it's like nice to kind of not worry about that again. You do that all the time, where I like see you when I come to work and I make food and you're like, oh, happy night. It's like, what? What's wrong with you? To eat food.
Like, I don't eat breakfast, so if you just busy in the middle of the day,
I ran out to the road and I looked left and right.
he's in my tummy. There's a division of labor.
No, even worse than that. That was my first Thing is, I think
All right. Thank you very much. All right, nice seeing you too. If you change your mind on strawberry milk, just we don't have to. See you guys later.